Ford's second-generation C-Max MPV has injected a welcome dose of driving enjoyment into the segment for 5-seat compact people-carrying models. In this revised form, it also brings a range of useful fresh technologies to this segment and benefits from smarter looks and a revised range of more efficient engines. As before, you also get clever seat-folding mechanisms and plenty of space as part of an accomplished range of virtues. The result could well be a more versatile alternative to that familiar family hatch you might have been considering.
Compromise doesn't have to be a dirty word. In fact, intelligent compromise is exactly what underpins the design of Ford's C-Max compact MPV, here rejuvenated in revised second-generation form. Here's a class of car that needs to be large enough to fit all your kids and luggage, but not so big that it's hard to park or pilot around town. It requires an engine with the torque for willing acceleration when the vehicle's fully loaded, but not so much pulling power that running costs will stretch the family purse strings to breaking point. It would need all the modern safety and convenience features that buyers demand, but at the same time must feature pricing that isn't out of the reach of wage packets that already have school uniforms to buy and hungry mouths to feed. As I said, it's all about intelligent compromise. That's always been the appeal of the compact MPV. A class of car that, for not a lot more money than you pay for a Focus or Astra-sized family hatchback, offers a little more space and a lot more versatility. The only downside with most small people carriers of this kind tends to come in terms of driving dynamics that inevitably seem to get watered down with the extra weight and height you get from models in this segment. Or some of them anyway. Right from its original introduction back in 2003, Ford's C-Max proved it didn't have to be like that. You really could have a compact but spacious MPV that was just as good to drive as an ordinary family hatch. Even today, most other brands haven't grasped that concept. The launch of the second-generation C-Max range in 2010 saw this unique selling point carried over intact, the lineup by now offering both 5- and 7-seat derivatives. These quickly gained Ford a useful 12% market share in this sector, as total European sales across the model line exceeding the 1.2 million mark. By 2015, though, the market was expecting more of models in this segment, with buyers seeking greater efficiency, cutting-edge technology and more performance. Ford had to respond, and they've done so with the thoroughly revised range that we're going to look at here in 5-seat C-Max form. Time to put this car to the test. Certain cars that just feel right as soon as you try them, and this C-Max is one. Perhaps your expectation of MPV motoring is that you'll be trying to get yourself comfortable behind a bus-sized steering wheel before firing up a diesel engine sounding as if it's escaped from an industrial tarmac grader. On the move, you might expect the steering of a car of this kind to be vague, the cornering to be about as precise as a Michael Fish hurricane alert, and the acceleration and braking to feel distinctly underwhelming. If so, there are pleasant surprises on offer as you discover just how joyously this Ford goes about scotching those stereotypes. This 5-seater version sits 58mm lower than its grand stablemate, aiming to offer a slightly more dynamic but still pretty commanding driving position, the high-mounted 6-speed gearshift falling easily to hand. Once you're settled in, the first portents are good, continuing as the first few miles reveal a car that, thanks to its tortoise chassis and clever control blade suspension, manages the difficult trick of being both supple over the bumps, yet stable through the bends. As you turn into a corner and note the surprisingly feelsome nature of the now further improved electric power steering, you also notice that the car seems more planted as you hug the inside of the bend. That's no accident, as it turns out. Such responsiveness coming courtesy of a torque vectoring control system that lightly brakes the inside wheel as you turn, transferring power to the outside wheel where grip is needed. The kind of thing that you would expect to find on a far more sporting car. The 7-seater Grand C-Max model has this too, but being shorter and 100 kilograms lighter, this 5-seat version is inevitably more agile, so you can enjoy the whole slightly surprising experience all the more. Ford has further improved the dynamics of this revised model, fitting stiffer suspension brushes and retuned dampers that reduce body roll without creating too much of an over-firm ride. Of course, you'll point out to us quite rightly that throwing any kind of MPV around like this will hardly be high on the list of priorities for most potential family buyers, or at least those wanting to keep their children from soiling the rather smart interior fabrics, which is perfectly true for half the time you're at the wheel. For the other half, you'll be either on the empty laden leg of your family taxi journey, or you'll be running late for the school play, ballet lessons, train station, delete as appropriate. At which point, believe me, this Ford's willingness to work with you without behaviour resembling a channel ferry on a choppy sea will come as a pleasant surprise. And all will appreciate the improvements in refinement made to these revised models. Wind, road and engine noise all having been reduced. On top of that, you can also specify the usual optional systems that allow the car to automatically park itself and autonomously stop itself if a forward-facing camera detects a hazard ahead. Our favourite high-tech feature, though, is standard fit on all C-Max models, the Ford MyKey system. This enables you to program a separate key for your car that'll control the vehicle's use should you lend it out, say, for example, to your son or daughter. This can allow you to restrict your C-Max's top speed, prevent deactivation of the driver assistance and the safety features, inhibit incoming phone calls, reduce the audio system's volume, and even disable the stereo completely if the seatbelts aren't being used. Finally, I should talk about engines. Under the bonnet, an old-tech 1.6 Ti VCT normally aspirated petrol engine is still offered for budget-minded buyers and makes 62 miles an hour from rest in 11.8 seconds en route to 116 miles an hour. It's relatively inefficient though, which makes it well worthwhile finding the extra cash for Ford's much more modern 1-litre EcoBoost petrol unit. Surprisingly, given its smaller size, this power plant has about 15% more pulling power than the normally aspirated alternative. You're talking 170 newton meters of the stuff, whether you opt for it in 100 PS or 125 PS guises. The lower powered EcoBoost unit manages 62 miles an hour from rest in 12.9 seconds en route to 108 miles an hour, while the pokier version improves those figures to 11.4 seconds and 116 miles an hour. Most customers, though, will march past all of these power plants with hardly a second glance in their search for something from the now more efficient Euro 6 diesel range. Most buyers will go for the 120 PS 1.5 litre TDCI unit that I'm trying here, in which guise is up to 270 newton meters of torque, hence the decent braked towing capacity of 1,200 kilograms. It makes 62 miles an hour in 11.3 seconds en route to 114 miles an hour and feels willing enough to make you question the need to spend more on the pricier diesel option, a 2-litre TDCI unit now offering 150 PS. Here the performance figures improved to 9.5 seconds and 126 miles an hour. In both cases, there's the option of specifying a 6-speed power shift automatic gearbox, one of those that uses clever twin clutch technology that automatically selects your next gear before you've even left the last one. Unofficially known within Ford as compact, this 5-seater C-Max looks a little better proportioned than its 7-seater Grand C-Max stablemate, as you'd expect, given that its well-proportioned if slightly unadventurous shape doesn't have to incorporate the larger model's twin sliding side doors. The looks have aged well, requiring just a little freshening up to keep this model looking current, and that is exactly what's been delivered here. This updated version's restyling package is supposed to reflect the brand's so-called One Ford global design language, hence the addition of the distinctive trapezoidal front grille familiar from most of the company's other models, which joins these sleeker, chiselled front headlamps. These can now feature adaptive front lighting that changes to suit different road conditions. This improved version also features more rectangular and elongated fog lamps and a smoother, smarter bonnet, now with a cleaner, more aerodynamic look, thanks to the way that the washer jets have been concealed beneath the windscreen. It's from the side, of course, that the two C-Max body styles differ most greatly. This 5-seat version keeping conventionally opening rear doors and looking much the sportier of the pair, 140mm shorter in length than its 7-seat stablemate. It's still a spacious thing though, something you realise when you make comparisons to the Focus family hatch that this car's based upon. This C-Max being 20mm longer and 157mm taller than that model. Side profile interest comes courtesy of two main feature creases, one at waist height through the door handles and the other lower down above the sills. All variants, even this entry-level version, get smart alloy wheels and this neat chromed finish on the upper door line. At the back there are smarter rear light clusters, and the designers have tried to give the tailgate a smoother and more sophisticated one-piece appearance using high-tech laser brazing techniques. Time to take a seat at the wheel, where, as before, it seems as though the stylists have felt freer to inject a little more expression into the mix. Hence the dashboard that delivers this interesting blend of sweeping arcs and metallic or piano black finishes. These deeply cowled instrument dials could almost be from an Alfa Romeo, which seems somehow appropriate given the C-Max emphasis on driving dynamics. The fascia as a whole draws its inspiration from that used in Ford's Fiesta Super Mini, but it's a few degrees bolder and is all the better for it, although locating the minor controls can still take a little getting used to. In terms of the changes to this improved model, well, it's all a bit cleaner and more intuitive this time around, with classier black satin trim and chrome detailing that contribute to a modern look. Some of the functions are simpler to use. The air conditioning controls, for example, which now feature buttons that are easier to recognise and to distinguish. Others have been relocated to the Sync 2 infotainment screen that on most models now dominates the centre of the dash. It's slightly awkwardly placed in a recessed position between these two air vents, but it's contributed to a significant reduction in overall button clutter. Through Sync 2 you can control audio, navigation, climate and phone functions via voice or touchscreen buttons. I'd master the voice functionality if I were you, as the buttons can be rather fiddly to use. Once you're au fait with this, you can issue simple one-shot commands like play song to play a track from a CD, or even I'm hungry to bring up a list of local restaurants on the split-screen satellite navigation system. Sync 2 is optional on base Z-Tech trim level, but it's well worth specifying, as without it, you're provided only with a much smaller 4.2-inch display, operable only with more conventional button-orientated functionality. Any MPV must also prioritise day-to-day convenience too, and with this in mind, Ford has renewed its efforts in terms of cabin practicality. This improved interior now offering more than 20 stowage spaces. Whether the need is to accommodate toys, books or snacks, you should find something to suit. There's a sliding armrest that accommodates a deep storage area with 2 USB connection points for storing and charging mobile devices. It's part of a redesigned centre console area that can accommodate a variety of bottles and cups. In fact, it can simultaneously hold a 1 litre bottle and a 0.4 litre cup. All this despite the fact that, thankfully, a conventional handbrake has been retained. There's also a more accessible glove box and a roof-mounted compartment for your sunglasses. Time to move rearwards, where you get 3 entirely separate rear chairs. Now, on the downside, you can't slide them backwards and forwards in the way that you can in a Grand C-Max. And because the cabin is quite narrow, this middle seat is too, so there's no chance of fitting 3 child seats side by side. On the plus side, the setup does benefit from an optional comfort feature, which will allow this centre seat to be folded away while the outer ones slide diagonally backwards to create a more luxurious 2-seater rear passenger layout. As before, the durable fabrics have been designed to cope with the worst that your kids can dish out, and if you opt to pay a little extra for the optional family pack, then you also get integrated sun blinds for these side windows, LED reading lights and seat back trays. And luggage room? Well, let's see. Another popular option will be the hands-free tailgate that allows you to lift the rear hatch by waving your foot beneath the bumper if you approach the car with your arms laden down with shopping. Here though, we've got a conventional hatch which rises to reveal a substantial space. Perhaps that isn't surprising given that the car is only 140mm shorter than its grand counterpart, yet has 2 fewer seats. Even with a full complement of passengers on board, owners will be enjoying anything between 432 and 627 litres of space, depending on whether they load up to the parcel shelf or fully onwards to the roof. That is very comparable to key competitors like Renault Scenic and Citroën C4 Picasso. It's a pity though that Ford hasn't packaged in one of those useful variable height boot floors. If you need more space, then pushing the seats forward will reveal up to 1,684 litres of fresh air. Now, should that not be quite enough, and you need your C-Max to function as an impromptu removals van, there is theoretically the opportunity to remove these rear seats completely and boost that figure to 1,723 litres. Mind you, you'd have to be handy with a spanner to do it, and then be strong of back when it comes to lifting the chairs out. It's a very fiddly process, and we can't see owners ever bothering, quite frankly. Any that do will probably wish they'd opted for Ford's more van-like Tornado Connect model. For most families, most of the time though, this C-Max should be just about right. If you've looked at your family requirements for a compact MPV and decided that 5 seats are enough to meet them, then this C-Max will save you around £1,700 over an equivalent version of Ford's 7-seat Grand C-Max model. That means a C-Max pricing span in the £18,000 to £26,000 bracket, which is fairly typical for contenders in the segment for family hatchback-based compact people carriers. As for the C-Max lineup itself, well, if you don't cover many miles, then one of the 1-litre EcoBoost petrol derivatives could well suit. Prices starting at under £19,000 for the 100 PS variant, with a further £500 premium to pay if you want the pokier 125 PS version of that unit. Many buyers though will want diesel power, where around £20,000 is the starting price point, a sum that'll get you the 1.5 litre TDCi 120 variant that we're trying here. Now, the pokier 2-litre TDCi 150 PS engine comes only with the pricier trim levels, so you'll need a budget of at least around £23,000 for one of those. You'll need a diesel if you want an automatic gearbox, the power shift transmission offered at a premium of around £1,200 with either engine. Now, time for a few value judgments based on that, and I'll start from a Ford range perspective. For this Focus-derived model, you're essentially looking at a premium of around £3,000 over the Blue Oval brand's smaller Fiesta-based B-Max MPV, which, considering you're getting almost twice as much cargo capacity, seems reasonable. A C-Max also gives you more than twice as much cargo capacity as you get from Ford's conventional Focus family hatch, yet essentially costs no more money, which seems like a pretty good deal. And buying a C-Max would save you just around £1,000 in list price terms over what you'd pay to get a smaller, far less practical, but mechanically almost identical Focus estate. Remember too that Ford can also sell you their van-based Tornado Connect 5-seater MPV at a substantial saving over C-Max prices, probably somewhere in the £2,500 to £3,500 bracket. A Tornado Connect would give you slightly more space than is on offer here, but the downside lies with frumpier LCV style looks and the sacrifice of a little of this C-Max model's sharp handling. As usual, it comes down to your priorities. All well and good, but how does this car stack up against key competitors from other brands? All of them freshly introduced or substantially upgraded since the original version of this second generation design was first launched. Well, let's see. Ford is one of the few brands offering different body styles in the compact MPV segment to suit 5 and 7-seat configurations. Citroën, Renault and Volkswagen are the only 3 others, with the 5-seat models in question, the Citroën C4 Picasso, the Renault Scenic and the Volkswagen Golf SV representing this C-Max's key opposition. The Citroen's a strong and efficient contender in this trio, but its quirky electronic dash won't appeal to everyone, and the volume Blue HDI 120 version you need to compare directly against this base C-Max diesel model will cost you nearly £1,000 more. Mind you, at least a C4 Picasso is priced comparably to a C-Max in petrol form. Look at either a Renault Scenic or a Volkswagen Golf SV, and you'd be looking at having to find around £1,000 more for a comparable petrol model, or between £1,500 and £2,000 more for a comparable diesel. The only other option in this segment is BMW's 2 Series Active Tourer, but that requires a premium of around £4,000 over this C-Max. It might additionally be worth pointing out that C-Max money would also buy you some of the smaller 7-seat models in this segment. MPVs like Toyota's Verso and Kia's Carens cost much the same as this Ford, although the older engine technology you get with both of these models mean that they'll cost you significantly more to run. If, having considered all of this, you conclude that it is a C-Max that you really want, then you're going to need to know just how generous Ford has been with the standard spec. Well, let's see. Even with base Z-Tech trim, which is the spec that we're trying here, all models come with alloy wheels of at least 16 inches in size, plus front fog lights and heated powered door mirrors. Inside there's air conditioning, sports style front seats, a quick clear heated windscreen for rapid visibility on icy mornings, and a DAB audio system with Ford Sync connectivity. Another nice standard feature added into this improved range is the useful Ford My Key system that recognises your favourite driving settings from an individually programmed ignition key. Other thoughtful touches include a mini spare wheel instead of that awful tyre repair kit, which is all you get as standard on a Focus. And also the Easy Fuel misfuel prevention device, which will stop you from making a very expensive mistake at the filling station, putting diesel into a petrol model or vice versa. So there's quite a lot on a C-Max Z-Tech model like this one. Most buyers, though, will want to find the extra £1,500 to upgrade themselves to the titanium spec, the next trim level up. Now, this premium gets you LED daytime running lights, larger 17-inch alloy wheels, climate control, an auto-dimming rear-view mirror, auto headlamps and wipers, a push-button start system, and cruise control with a speed limiter, which will help to look after your licence through roadworks or urban areas. Most significantly, titanium spec also adds Ford's Sync 2 infotainment setup with its 8-inch colour touchscreen and voice control. To further embellish your C-Max, then you'd need to stretch up to the flagship Titanium X trim, which includes things like bi-xenon headlamps that turn with a bends, a huge panorama glass roof, power folding mirrors, and partial leather seats that in the front are heated and power adjustable. Most buyers, though, will want to choose a lower order model like this one, and then add individual items like these from the options list. Many will want to find the small amount extra that Ford asks to get their C-Max models fitted with a family pack that adds rear door sun blinds, front and rear LED reading lights and seat back trays. We would also want the optional comfort feature, which allows the centre seat in the rear to be folded away while the outer ones slide diagonally backwards to create a more luxurious two-seater rear passenger layout. There's also a winter pack that adds heat for the seats and the steering wheel, and also a convenience pack that includes front and rear parking sensors, those power folding mirrors, and an active park assist system that can now automatically steer the car into perpendicular parking bays, as well as roadside parallel slots. Other key options include a rear-view camera and a navigation system that you can integrate into the Sync 2 infotainment setup. Many buyers will want to look at the hands-free tailgate option that allows you to open the rear hatch by waving your foot below the bumper if you are approaching the car with your arms laden down with shopping. Practical stuff includes a roof load carrier, privacy glass, a 230-volt, 150-watt power converter, a cargo net, a load retention guard, and a reversible luggage compartment mat. Plus, of course, there's the usual range of tow bars, roof boxes, plus carriers for cycles, skis and snowboards, the kind of thing that you'd expect for a car of this sort. On to safety. As you'd expect in this day and age, all models include traction control and an ABS braking system with EBA, emergency brake assist, for panic stops. You also get ESP stability control too, of course. Indeed, a very sophisticated version of that setup. Ford says it features what it calls an enhanced transitional stability system that's able to calculate when a skid is likely to take place from a combination of the car's speed, the position of the steering wheel, and the speed at which the wheel is being turned. If from that data the software decides that a skid is imminent, then braking of individual wheels is applied, often before the driver realises that anything is amiss, by activating the ESP stability control. Other standard C-Max safety features include hill start assist to stop you from drifting backwards on uphill junctions, plus a tyre pressure monitoring system, Isofix child seat fastenings, and the usual twin front, side and curtain airbags, all there to justify a 5-star safety rating from Euro NCAP, in whose tests this car scored an impressive 92% rating in the adult occupant protection category. For a little extra, a BLIS blind spot information system will stop you from dangerously pulling out to overtake when you're on the move. You could also ask about a cross-traffic alert feature that'll warn you of oncoming traffic if you're reversing out of a space. Want to go further? Ford can oblige if you're prepared to dip into the options list. A key feature we'd want to look at is Active City Stop, a system that scans the road ahead as you drive at urban speeds of up to 31 miles an hour. If a potential collision hazard is detected, you'll be warned. If you don't respond or you aren't able to, then the brakes will automatically be applied to decrease the severity of any resulting accident. Active City Stop can be ordered separately, or you'll get it included as part of an affordably priced optional driver assistance pack that also incorporates 5 other key features. Auto high beam headlights that dip themselves in the face of oncoming traffic at night, a traffic sign recognition system that reads the traffic signs as you pass them and displays them for you on the dash, a lane departure warning setup that stops you from dangerously pulling out to overtake in front of another car, a lane keeping aid that stops dozy drivers from veering out of their lanes on the highway, and a driver alert system that monitors your reactions as you drive for signs of drowsiness before, if necessary, warning you to stop for a restorative coffee. The other key safety option is adaptive cruise control, able to keep you a set distance from the car ahead on the motorway. It comes with 2 additional aids. First, a forward alert feature that enables you to set the preferred distance you want to stay behind the car in front. Get closer than this preset distance, and a 3-stage dashboard display is there to warn you. Second, there's a pre-collision assist system that, like Active City Stop, scans the road ahead as you drive for potential collision hazards, but in this case, it's able to do so at higher speeds. It's obviously crucial for Ford to get its cost of ownership sums right, hence the changes made to the updated 2nd generation version of this C-Max that see significant improvements in economy and cleanliness across the range. This is down to various fuel-saving technologies. Take the active grille shutter system. At a standstill and at start-off, this keeps the grille vent open to cool the engine, but when you pick up speed, the vent automatically closes, which improves aerodynamics and also helps to save fuel. Then there's smart regenerative charging, which only charges the battery when required and, wherever possible, avoids doing so when you're pressing down on the accelerator. Plus, as you'd expect, on nearly all models, an auto start-stop system is included that cuts the engine when you don't need it, stuck in traffic or waiting at the lights. Advanced diesel technologies include a lean NOx trap for cleaner exhaust emissions that acts as a sponge to better capture the filthy gases. And there are fewer of those gases this time around too, thanks to the fact that the engines now breathe more easily due to a variable nozzle turbocharger. The units also now produce less friction thanks to a diamond-like coating used on key parts like the pistons, the pins and the seals. As a result of these improvements, the 120 PS Euro 6 compatible 1.5 litre TDCi engine that this improved 2nd generation range showcases is about 12% more frugal than the 1.6 litre TDCi unit it replaced, even though it puts out 5 PS more power. To be specific, a 1.5 litre TDCi C-Max will return 68.9 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 105 grams per kilometre of CO2. That is a fraction off what you'd get from comparable Citroën C4 Picasso and Volkswagen Golf SV models, but it's almost exactly the same as you manage in a comparable Renault Scenic DCi. If you want a Ford-orientated comparison, then reckon on a C-Max costing you about 5% more to run than a comparable Focus fitted with the same engine. The bigger 2-litre TDCi diesel is now also much more efficient too, the addition to this variant of an auto start-stop system having meant a 17% fuel economy improvement for this derivative, despite an output increase from 140 to 150 PS. That means 70.6 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 105 grams per kilometre of CO2. Choose either of the TDCi engines with the optional power shift automatic transmission and you'll hit your fuel and CO2 returns by around 10%. On to petrol power. At the launch of this improved second-generation C-Max model, Ford continued to offer budget buyers the 125 PS version of its old, normally aspirated 1.6-litre TI VCT unit, but this power plant is relatively inefficient by modern standards, partly because it can't be fitted with an auto start-stop system that's used elsewhere across the range. Hence the unexceptional running cost showing for this variant, 44.1 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 149 grams per kilometre of CO2. The best way of putting these mediocre figures into perspective is to give you some comparable stats from a more modern C-Max petrol engine, let's say the 1-litre T EcoBoost unit, which manages 55.3 miles per gallon on the combined cycle and 117 grams per kilometre of CO2, whether you order it in a 100 PS or 125 PS guise. No other segment rival can significantly better this, and a directly comparable, pricier 1.2-litre Renault Scenic does significantly worse. But are the quoted returns from this 1-litre petrol unit really achievable in the real world, in everyday motoring? I raise this issue because some have doubted this point, and it's certainly true that this 1-litre T EcoBoost power plant requires a more efficiency-orientated driving approach if you're going to get close to the running cost returns that it's supposed to be able to achieve. Fortunately, Ford's technology helps here. There's an illuminated arrow on the instrument panel that tells you when to change gear for maximum fuel efficiency. And you also get an eco mode system that continually assesses the effects of your driving behaviour on your fuel consumption. The setup analyses your speed, your gear shifting, braking and anticipation levels, plus the number of short and long journeys that you make. Smart software then advises you on how to improve fuel economy. What else? Residual values. These are expected to slightly enhance in line with this revised model's improvements in quality and technology. Ford is claiming an improvement of around £650 in terms of an average retained value, which, if true, is certainly worth having. Inevitably, though, depreciation figures remain no match for the rock-solid returns you get from, say, a rival Volkswagen Touran model. Having said that, you would be paying significantly less for one of these up front, so if you're calculating whole life costs, this Ford can still look a very attractive prospect. The key here is to be reasonable in your expectations. Diesel variants will hold on to their value best, but the lower servicing costs of the 1-litre petrol unit will remain attractive for lower mileage drivers. It might also be worth mentioning that the C-Max construction is eco-friendly, with over 300 parts produced from recycled materials.
That only leaves insurance groupings. To give you an idea here, you're looking at Group 16E for the 125 PS 1-litre EcoBoost petrol model, Group 17E for the 1.5 litre TDCi diesel, and Group 27E for the 2-litre TDCi diesel.
All C-Max models come with an unremarkable 3-year, 60,000 mile Ford warranty with Ford assistance at the roadside for the first year. If you plan on keeping your car for longer or you're a high mileage driver, you can pay a small extra cost to extend that warranty to either 4 years and 80,000 miles or 5 years and 100,000 miles. There's also the option of a Ford Protect Premium plan that over 2 or 3 years can cut the cost of scheduled servicing. In truth, Ford didn't need to do a whole lot to this second generation C-Max to keep it right near the head of the pack in the segment for family hatch-based 5-seater compact MPVs. The updates to the styling, the improvements to the interior, and the big efficiency gains leveraged by those two much improved Euro 6 diesel engines are welcome, but the overall look, feel and appeal of this Ford hasn't been markedly altered. In many ways, that's no bad thing. Combining entertainment for drivers with comfort and convenience for passengers is a nut that has proven too difficult for many rivals to crack, but this C-Max manages while barely breaking sweat in the process. Of course, it's not perfect. Some rivals shade it in terms of ultimate carriage capacity or cabin quality, while others are slightly cheaper. There's not much in it these days though, and for many buyers this revised model's range of optional technology features might well swing the deal. Here, after all, is a car that, depending on how you specify it, can park itself, autonomously brake itself to avoid a crash, and even limit its own performance if you happen to have lent it out. Arguably even more appealing is the way that here Ford has brought us a people carrier with hardly a trace of people carrying stigma, which means that, assuming you haven't already qualified for your own private parking bay at the maternity ward, it'll remain an engagingly clever option in this segment for smaller but very active families.